I'm not the most outspoken person around. I don't go around telling people how good I am, whether I've achieved things or not. If people come and ask me, I'm more than happy to tell them, but I'm not going to blow my trumpet.
6 take 1.
I can't be the Mr. Nice Guy. I can't be the soft, mellow, laid-back, kick-back type of bloke. I can't do that. You ain't going to be extraordinary if you have that game on your side. Like, you need to find something deep inside you that's going to bring the best out of you.
For Anthony Mundine and Daniel Geale, the journeys that have led them to their upcoming world title fight couldn't have been any more different. Mundine's path has always been in the spotlight. A champion in 2 sports over 2 decades, he's never far from the headlines and someone who divides opinion like no one else.
What I've done in my career as far as sports-wise, it's extraordinary. I don't think there's another athlete out there better than me. That's the way I see it. Unless you can put one that's dominated 2 sports like I have.
But for Geale, the road has been a much quieter one. As a child in Tasmania, boxing found him. But for years, Australia didn't know Daniel Geale. That all changed last September with world title glory in Germany.
I still believe that I can get better. I'm just about at my peak. Physically, I believe I've peaked. Mentally, I still think I'm building and I'm improving and I'm getting stronger every day.
Now, as they prepare to step into the ring for the second time, different forces are driving each fighter to victory. For Mundine, the motivation is to prove he's still the man at 37 years of age.
I'm the best athlete ever produced in this country, ever. My name is going to live probably for eternity. My legacy is going to grow, and that's why this fight is so important, for my legacy.
While redemption is burning deep inside Geale after a controversial loss in their first fight.
I want to win this fight so much. I mean, this is another turning point in my life. I think I've had a lot of them, but this fight's very, very, very important. I get that one ticked off, and I can move on.
The first time they met, it was epic. This time, it promises to be history in the making. Rewind back to the 27th of May 2009. Anthony Mundine, arguably the biggest name in Australian boxing at the time, takes on a relative unknown in IBO World Middleweight champion, Tasmanian Daniel Geale.
It was one of the biggest fights ever to be held in this country. For Mundine, it was his opportunity for another world title at a different weight class, coming down in weight from where he had been. And for Daniel Geale, who was world champion, but yet nobody barely knew who he was, it was the opportunity for him to get his name on every Australian's lips.
Mundine, he was sort of at the top of his career, and we know how dangerous he was, but it was sort of a fight that we had confidence that Daniel would win the fight.
It was massive, the first fight. I remember going up to Brisbane and just seeing a crowd like that I hadn't seen before. I'd been at the local clubs most of his other fights, so at a stadium like that was pretty awesome.
IBO Middleweight World Champion!
Mundine Geale, #1, was an absolute cracker of a fight because you had two top Australian boxers fighting for the IBO version of the world middleweight title.
Everyone thought Daniel Geale was the man to beat Anthony Mundine, and he was the challenger that night and beat a champion.
The first round, Mundine was somewhat surprised. He's like, whoa, this guy can fight. I think Geale thought, right, I've got Anthony Mundine's measure. I can walk through his punches, I can push him the way I did, and Mundine just slipped that punch in there and put him on his backside.
Within seconds of round 2, Daniel Geale is down.
Barry Michael said in the telecast he's hurt and he's wobbled. He was actually backing away. He was off balance and he got clipped on the chin.
No, he wasn't hurt. He got straight back up again and won the rest of the round.
Contests like that don't come along very often. You can have close fights, but there's an argument is made quite clearly for one fighter in a round. This way is just like, with so many people, and even the TV commentators are saying, well, which way do we go on this?
At the time, I used to commentate and score at the same time, and it was the last time I was ever asked to do that, fortunately, because it was very, very hard to separate some of the rounds because they were that close. It was such an even seesawing battle.
Honestly, this is the fight you could score either way.
It was just a good old-fashioned fight. It wasn't a one-sided fight. That's the thing I like most about. So many of Anthony's fights, he wins 12, 11 rounds. This fight, he didn't have it all his own way.
What a fight. What a fight. The skills of both of these guys, you know, the defensive skills were unbelievable. They were just throwing punches and making a miss, coming back. Every now and then they were landed, but they were on each other's hammer for the whole fight.
Slipper score.
Could have been a knockdown.
It should have been a knockdown.
Yeah, I believe that he did get a knockdown. I believe that was a knockdown, you know, that we didn't get accredited for.
By the rules, it's a knockdown. If it's on the end of a punch and your glove touches the ground, well, then it's a knockdown.
The fight was decided in the last round because after 11 rounds, Mundine was ahead on one scorecard, Geale was ahead on the other, and on Marcus McDonald from England's scorecards, it was even. So whoever won the last round was going to win the fight.
Daniel knew he had to win the last round. We told him that. We said, you got to win the last round. He let the last round slip, and I think that's what cost him the result.
For Mundine, the legend continues, and for Daniel Geale, maybe a legend is born.
That surprised a lot of people, you know. I think a lot of people thought that it was going to be a much easier fight. They thought these young kids coming through, you know, you get bowled over by Mundine and that'll be the end of it.
They say that first fight was controversial. I watched that fight on a number of occasions. It wasn't even close. I'll tell you what it was. It was competitive. I'm not going to say it wasn't competitive. It was competitive, but I won that clearly. It was 8-4 to me, if you see it, blatant. If you're a Geale fan, 7-5 with the knockdown.
A fight game is this. If I hit you more than me, I win the fight. But if I throw more punches than they land in the right scoring positions, I win the fight. If Anthony Mundine scored more punches than Daniel Geale in the first fight, I've never seen a fight.
I was pretty excited once that last bell rang and got up on the ring, and I thought Dan had done enough to win that fight, so I was disappointed to say the least.
I actually thought that the knockdown that Anthony Mundine scored, which was a clean knockdown, and the fact that I believe he came home in the last couple of rounds of a championship fight, deserved to get him the decision.
I've watched it 2 or 3 times. I'm never going to change my belief that Daniel won it.
I thought Anthony had just done enough to win. But Geale had a great work rate, controlled the pace, but Mundine, I think, had the cleaner shots and the better power punches.
What's been overlooked, I think, in a lot of the aftermath of that first fight is the fact that the IBO sat 3 independent judges down, made them watch the fight, and they all awarded the fight to Geale.
We had 3 individual judges from around the world, all reviewed the fight. It was a 2-1 split decision to Daniel Geale. It was pretty much the same scores, just slightly different. So an immediate rematch could not be ordered. We did install him as a mandatory challenger, which then meant that Anthony would have to fight him at no later than 9 months following.
The IBO ordered a rematch. Daniel Geale said, sweet, let's fight. And Anthony said, I won't do it. Anthony actually relinquished the belt that he'd won from Daniel because he didn't want to take the rematch.
Fast forward 3.5 years and the pair are set to do it all again in one of the most anticipated fights in Australian ring history. This time the tables are turned. Geale is now arguably the top dog in the Australian fight game after a famous win over Felix Sturm in Germany, and Mundine wants his IBF World Middleweight title.
To me, he's a glorified amateur. I mean, he's a good fighter, but an amateur. And he hasn't changed his style. He's not exciting. To me, he's boring to watch. Everyone's an opportunity in this fight to see me.
Everybody knows there's probably not that much left for him. You know, he's got to a point in his career where he has been great over the years, but he's put himself in a position where he's not that liked. And you know, if I'm the guy that is his last fight, that beats him in his last fight, then you know I'll be more than happy to take that role.
If Anthony's thinking he's going to fight the same fight and is training for that fight, I think it's a mistake. He should train for the best Daniel Geale humanly possible, and that will also bring his level of activity and ring presence up as well.
Daniel Geale has grown as a fighter. He has challenged himself as a fighter over the last 2 or 3 years. He's fought the best and most accessible fighters out there. If somebody was available to fight him and he was the best, Daniel Geale never turned his back and said no, never had an excuse.
Mundine's disappeared, he's faded. What else has he done in the last 3 years? Mundine has talked a lot and he's delivered little. And for a long while there, he was almost the emperor with no clothes. He was telling everybody how terrific he was going and how well he was going, who he was fighting. I want to fight Mayweather next, I want to fight Cotto. They're pipe dreams. They're not going to happen. They were never going to happen.
Daniel will be on an eye. We've just won the world title in Germany. Very hard to win in Germany, very hard to win for an Aussie to win overseas. So they're on a high and they would be thinking down them tracks that, oh, he's 37, you know, he's carried some injuries, which Chock has had injuries, hip injuries and different things like that. He's not, you know, in their heads he's not as fast as he used to be, but they're going to get a surprise.
I'm out to break records. I'm out to make history. And that's what this fight's exactly going to do.
He's the guy that's standing in my way at the moment. He was the guy that did take my title, but I know things have definitely changed now.